Hello, my name is Melissa Dreyer, and this is my final research presentation for the Morningside College class EDUC 699. My research project was studying the effects of sight word instruction on reading accuracy of first grade students. The problem: reading accuracy scores of elementary students are increasingly more discrepant from grade level peers. This is especially true with students who struggle with reading and may have an individualized education plan. The national panel states there are 5 essential elements that should be included in reading instruction: phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. Now, sight words is not listed in there, but is one of those things that is a known that needs to be learned in order to help round out any good reading student. Alberto, Waugh, Frederick, and Davis looked at the relationship between sight word instruction and connected texts, and if that would benefit those students reading below grade level. Why me? I chose this topic because as a special education teacher, my students struggle not only with reading, but also with sight words. I wanted to help my students get the best foundation possible with sight words, so in turn, their reading accuracy scores would hopefully improve. Literature review. As I was conducting my research for this research experiment, I was coming across a vast majority of articles about reading and how to best help your students. The history of it, from what I was finding, was there were many examples of decoding word strategies, reading fluency instruction programs, decoding intervention programs, sight word instruction methods, but teaching sight words in isolation, mostly, and there was a large category of other reading strategies. The gap in research. It was difficult to find research with sight word intensive instruction. Much research involved sight words taught only in isolation. And then there were other research that involved only other reading elements instead of sight words. So they would exclude the sight word component. Goals, objectives of my research: to close the gap for my students so that they would be able to be achieving and be able to get closer to be reading at grade level. The purpose was to determine the impact of intense sight word instruction to connected texts on the first grade sight word and accuracy scores. The measurement device used was the TEAR FAST CBM and sight word assessments. The hypothesis: students' TEAR FAST CBM and sight word assessment scores will be positively impacted as a result of intense sight word instruction. The variables. The independent variable was the intense sight word instruction, while the dependent variable was the students' reading accuracy and sight word scores. The possible impact. 1. Results of the study could be used to help teachers decide if this type of instruction is beneficial. 2. If scores will increase on the FAST assessments. And 3. Teachers may change their instruction of sight words. Rather than just drill and kill, they may spend a little bit extra time to then really reap the benefits and rewards of that. Methodology. Participants. I had 5 first grade students that were on individualized education plans with reading goals. 2 were Caucasian male students and 3 were Hispanic students, 2 of which were female and 1 male. The materials that were used: sight word flashcards, whiteboards, markers, erasers, and LLI leveled books, which were the books we used during our guided reading time. We also used TEAR FAST CBM and sight word assessments. Procedure. 2 phases lasting 5 weeks each. Phase A consisted of 10-minute daily intensive sight word instruction. This was drilling words with writing them on the whiteboard reading, spelling, and reading them. Then phase B was a 10-minute session still every day. But in addition to drilling with the words, then we also were finding them in our guided reading books. We were writing the sight words in sentences, and in that way showing how we understand those words and that we can use them appropriately. Data analysis. After each week of Phase A and Phase B, students were assessed with the TIER FAST CBM and sight word assessments. So that was a weekly test at the end of each week during both Phase A and Phase B. Data was collected, it was graphed and analyzed to monitor student progress. The results. A paired samples t-test was conducted to compare the sight word accuracy. The CBM scores before the intense instruction were as follows. The median score was 19.20, while the standard deviation was 11.345. The CBM scores after intense instruction, where the median score was 31.60 and the standard deviation was 10.015. These results suggest the intense sight word instruction increased the participants' accuracy on the weekly CBM assessments. The sight word accuracy scores before the intense instruction, where the median score was 10, the standard deviation was 4.472, the sight word accuracy scores after the intensive instruction, the median score was 16.80, while the standard deviation was 6.723. These results suggest the intense sight word instruction increased the participants' accuracy on the weekly sight word assessments. Implications, limitations, and recommendations for future research. Implications. 1. The CBM scores increased. 2. The sight word scores increased. 3. Students were able to show understanding of sight words and what they were reading in a variety of ways. 4. Teachers could use a variety of instructional methods in order to teach to various learning modalities. That is important because we have to teach to where our kids are, what their skills are, and what their needs are. And we all learn in different ways, so you have to be able to find the way that's going to best fit for your students. Limitations. This was a short amount of time to run the research experiment. Reading takes time. We had a small sample size, so it was a narrow range of ages with only one grade level. Most students with reading disabilities have poor decoding skills. Reading is a complex problem, so even though my students struggle with sight words, there could still be another underlying problem or issue for why reading is not coming easy for them. And then we have external influences. Parents may not have time to help students work on sight words at home. So sending sight words home may not be the best way to help your student be successful and to study. If they're not going to get done at home with a parent present, that just may not be a good situation or a good solution. And then lastly, the student may not be able to practice the sight words on their own because of the poor decoding skills, because of the part that sight words don't follow the typical rules of how a lot of the words in the English language do. They're the ones that always have the exceptions. So trying to have your student practice these items at home, writing them in sentences or working on the flashcards at their own time may not be beneficial. Recommendations. A longer length of study would probably be very beneficial. Elongating the study from how I conducted it, which was 10 weeks, to having it go to a full semester or even the whole school year would probably be better. Conducting a longitudinal study, which would be following the student multiple years through multiple grade levels. Documenting effects of continual co-teaching throughout the reading development to see what different strategies and what things worked and what didn't. And then also having a larger group of participants. The conclusion. Intensive sight word instruction increased weekly CBM assessment scores. Intensive sight word instruction increased weekly sight word assessment scores. Using a variety of instructional methods will teach to the individual learning modalities of your students. So you will be able to come upon what will best work for your student. And that's what we as teachers are trying to do, is just to do what will best work for everybody involved. Here are my references. Thank you for listening.